Big news today, of course, was John Bolton getting raided by the FBI. Obviously, John Bolton is a jerk. I'm not particularly interested in him, but there was an interesting story unfolding kind of behind the scenes there, in between the lines. I love that part. It's very interesting. You can sometimes figure things out by noticing what's going on in between the lines. So people started contacting me on X, and if you aren't following me there, I hope you will. Go to x.com and look for @JG, like Jason Goodman, JG_CSTT, like crowdsource the truth. JG_CSTT. There's a lot of interaction going on there. Great for crowdsource investigation. What does this girl think about the assassination attempt? The point is, people started saying, hey, George Conway is, live streaming from John Bolton's house. And people are like, oh, what's George Conway doing there? But because a lot of people saw that I had confronted George Conway outside the courthouse down there when now let me get this straight because I confused it the other day. I don't remember if that was the Stormy Daniels trial. No, you see, the George Conway thing, that might have been in my mind, I'm conflating the Letitia James real estate fraud thing that just got overturned yesterday. I think I might have even made this mistake on a live stream, but I'm a little bit conflating in my mind the Letitia James, Alvin Bragg fraud case, which it's appropriately deemed. I mean, they were trying to nail Trump with fraud, but it's they themselves who are the frauds. But there was that one, and then there was also the Stormy Daniels trial. The reason why I'm conflating them in my mind is because they're both lawfare. And I've been sort of unwittingly thrust into the middle of this lawfare concept. I never really had any interest in the law, never wanted to go to law school, haven't been to law school. I'm certainly not a lawyer. I never heard of the concept of lawfare until I became a victim of it. And, then I was forced to learn everything about it that I possibly can. And a lot of people still don't understand it, even attorneys. I think it was, not Laura Ingraham, Megyn Kelly, who is herself a lawyer. She was delighted that it is now, according to her, Tish James who is the subject of lawfare. And that's wrong. Tish James is not the subject of lawfare. Tish James is a perpetrator of lawfare who's now running headfirst into the law. You can't fight lawfare with lawfare. You got to fight lawfare with legitimate law. Counter lawfare relies upon the law. See, the park is an interesting dichotomy because there's a lot of people doing a lot of nice things, and then there's a lot of people doing jackass things like riding bikes. I don't know about that art, but the painting was nice. I mean, the harpism, the harp playing. Anyway, John Bolton getting raided, so people were like, oh, George Conway, you yelled at him outside the court. Here's George Conway. And what was I saying to George Conway? I was saying, George, they're still selecting the jury. Isn't this all lawfare? And bullshit coming from the Lawfare Institute with Norm Eisen and Andrew Weissman and, of course, Benjamin Wittes. And he said, no. And I said, isn't it a criminal act to take nonprofit funds and, use them to corrupt the legal process? This is, I don't know if this building is, but we're down here near NYU Law School. Holy cow, this garbage truck reeks. You can imagine. It's a little over 80 degrees today, so it's slow simmering garbage there. Super stinks. But this is the NYU Law, I think it's Lipton Hall, where I confronted Andrew Weissman, who is one of the four horsemen of the Lawfare apocalypse. It's Andrew Weissman, Norm Eisen, Benjamin Wittes, there's many actually, Mark Elias, George Conway, all those guys. Yeah, I think that might be NYU Music or something. The law school is further down this way. There's a lot of buildings, they move them around. But the point is, people were saying, oh, you know, George Conway. But then what I discovered was, actually, it was Ben Wittes who was the first guy down there, the first person, the first non-law enforcement person. And I'm getting that from him, you know. Ben Wittes does a blog called like the Dog Shit blog or the Dog Shit News or the Dog Shirt Shitheads, something like that. And he's got a Substack. Here, this is the law school right here. You know, I don't think I can just walk in there, and I don't even think there's any point. Obviously, the last time I went there, you know, Andrew Weissman was doing his podcast. They've got the mitzvah tank here. This thing is just as annoying as anybody who's broadcasting music out into the street, bothering people. But so Ben Wittes, he's out there, and it was weird, because first of all, he gave about a 25-minute live stream. It's very loud, annoying music. He gave about a 25-minute live stream, and he said a bunch of things. First of all, he seemed extremely nervous to me. Why would Ben Wittes be nervous that John Bolton's house was getting raided? But he seemed to know an awful lot about it. He said that he was speaking to the Bethesda County, I guess, police. Yeah, BOCO, he called them. I mean, it's right near where he lives. John Bolton, Ben Wittes doxed him, didn't give the house number, but the photographs in the newspaper did. And he gave the cross street. And so I know exactly where John Bolton lives. Not that I'm going there, but it allowed me to calculate how far away it is from Ben Wittes' house. And it's not far. It's only about a 20-minute drive. It's a 2-hour walk. But who knows, maybe Ben Wittes is driving around. Maybe it's a coincidence that he's there on the exact 8 o'clock in the morning that the FBI is raiding John Bolton's house when nobody else is there. He's saying he's not comfortable leaving until other journalists show up. So he's giving us some background. And he says, like, well, you know, I can tell it's an FBI raid because here's a guy wearing an FBI jacket, and he says that he was talking to the Bethesda County Police, and they were polite and professional with him. And he even nervously says they asked him, what the hell are you doing here? How did you know the FBI would be here? They found it suspicious. And he was so nervous about the whole thing that he's, you know, it's interesting to see these kind of extemporaneous live streams, because people sometimes, particularly when they're nervous criminals like Ben Wittes, maybe they like a little bit let the cat out of the bag. And I felt like that's what he was doing, saying things that he probably wishes he didn't say, or giving us certain insights that insightful people can draw inferences from. And so he said that John Bolton, that they were scant days away from the statute of limitations expiring. He said that all of these people, John Brennan and all these other guys, that it was like a fever dream to think that they could be criminally charged with anything. Real good. That it's a fever dream to think that they could be charged with anything, and that John Bolton, according to Ben Wittes, might have some criminal exposure, and there was scant days left on the statute of limitations. And what he was talking about specifically was that John Bolton wrote a book. I forget the name of the book. I don't want to promote these idiots various things, but John Bolton wrote a book, and people might remember there was some controversy that Trump said that he had published some classified information in the book, and there's like a process that you go through. I forget what the exact term for it is, but some kind of like, you know, intelligence approval process when you're a government person writing a book. and that John Bolton didn't get that clearance, but then he published the book anyway. And like Trump was outgoing, so they started a criminal investigation, but the Biden DOJ shut it down. They shut down the investigation into Bolton, and it really got me thinking like, remember, so if it's, I don't know what the statute of limitations on that is, 4 years, 5 years, but we'd have to find the exact dates and all that, but if he's doing this towards the end of the first Trump administration, and now we're 8 months, 7, 8 months into the second Trump administration, if it's 4 years or 5 years, we could be getting really close to that statute of limitations on this thing that, Joe Biden tried to rescue John Bolton from prosecution on. And Ben Wittes was framing this as, this is retaliatory, but actually it seems more to me like what Ben Wittes did in December of 2020. It's almost like, these guys, Joe Biden had already, we'd have to see when John Bolton published that book, but what I'm getting at is Ben Wittes never said a word to me when I was asking him about Peter Smith in 2017, 18, 19, and all of 2020. Not until December of 2020 did Ben Wittes feel comfortable talking about whatever it is that Jason wants to talk about with Peter Smith. Why is that? Did he know that the DOJ was going to be all rigged up to put MAGA people in jail with January 6th and all the crap they were planning to do to Trump and anybody anywhere near Trump? Did he feel emboldened? And maybe John Bolton knew they were going to cheat and win the election. And so he said, forget it, I'll just publish the book, and then Joe Biden will get in and I won't get prosecuted, and all this controversy about publishing illegal material in the book will help sell books. And maybe Trump knew that, and now they're nailing John Bolton. But wait, it gets better. Because even if that's correct, why does Ben Wittes care? Well, he lives, 15, 20 minutes away from John Bolton. You hear Bethesda, Maryland. If you're not from the area, you might not realize how close that is to Washington, D.C. Ben Wittes lives in Washington, D.C. proper, in a house there. And it's only 15, 20-minute drive from the location he doxed as John Bolton's house today. And so he was saying like, I don't know John Bolton that well. And he's like, I don't know this and I don't know that, but it's like, gee, Ben Wittes, I don't know. It seems like you do know kind of a lot about this. You seem to know everything about this. Not the least of which is that the FBI raid was happening. He was there before CNN. He was there before anybody. And he even said there are no other journalists here. So he's doing his live stream, and then some Lawfare comrade comes on the live stream. I don't know what system he's using, but people can call in, or his producer can call in, however it works. His producer guy shows up on the live stream and starts like real-time searching the internet, because they seem like they were caught flat-footed. They're like, how does nobody else know about this? Why is CNN not there? Remember, when you had Roger Stone getting raided, somehow CNN knew. When Charles was going to get interviewed by the FBI, Chelsea Holiday, whatever that girl's name is, she was like, Charles, has the FBI called you yet? And he's like, what the hell are you talking about? Trump called him Michael Bolton. Well, look, that's funny. What's a good Michael Bolton song? But the point is, it seemed like the Lawfare crew got caught flat-footed. Now, so who is the Lawfare crew? It's Benjamin Wittes, it's Andrew Weissman, it's Norm Eisen, we know all that. But see, they're saying, where is the New York Times? Where is the Washington Post? Where is CNN? Those are their people. The producer guy who came on the live stream was lamenting the fact that the New York Post had already published something about it, and they were even saying, oh, how did they know? It seems like somebody tipped them off. I mean, it's like, listen, turnabout is fair play. I don't really care for the New York Post. I think they're full of a different flavor of shit than the rest of these other things, but it's conceivable that Trump or people within Trump's sphere think the New York Post is on their side and is sharing information with them, knowing that they'll publish it. I mean, you know, the New York Post wants to make money if John Bolton is getting raided, and they have an exclusive. They even said exclusive, and the Ben Wittes producer said, oh, I guess they don't watch the dog shit blog. Because it wasn't exclusive, they're saying. Ben Wittes was there. And Ben Wittes, you know, he's doxing John Bolton, and I think obviously contacting other news agencies who are friendly to the Lawfare Institute. Because we've seen that happen before, right? We have that email where, you know, Ben Wittes, he emails James Comey, and he says, hey, James Comey, FBI guy, maybe you should investigate this thing that's being looked at by the Wall Street Journal. And then we know the FBI starts investigating, and they can say, well, we got an anonymous tip and we felt it was worth investigating. And then look, here's reporting in the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal or whatever Shane Harris was writing for at that time. And so it becomes this, like, you know, dog chasing its own tail, self-fulfilling journalism prophecy, whatever you want to call it. We can see that this is, you know, Ben Wittes is there. Part of the role of the Lawfare Institute is to plant these legal narratives in the news. That's what those assholes were doing down at the court. You know, overseeing their plans, talking to their journalist comrades, making sure everybody was reporting on the trial. Because keep in mind, you know, law, it's like technology, law, medical. You can't just be a journalist and report on any of this stuff. You need a certain degree of knowledge to understand what's going on, and a truly skilled journalist would be able to understand the subject matter sufficiently that they could simplify it and explain it to lay people. And without that background knowledge, you could be at a disadvantage. So it's plausible that there are journalists who rely on people like Ben Wittes and Andrew Weissman and Norm Eisen to help them disambiguate some of these more complicated subjects. So this very nervous live stream with Ben Wittes, he's over there sort of alerting the troops, hey, we got caught flat-footed. And he's on for about 25 minutes, and he says he's got to go back and do his dog shit podcast, and hopefully somebody else will show up. And then other journalists did show up. I noticed this was quite interesting. There was this article later in the day, FBI searches the home of Trump critic John Bolton. Reports say, the reports they're talking about were Ben Wittes. We see the FBI leaving with some documents. And then we get some ridiculous commentary from some of the ridiculous idiots that we're used to seeing here, where they say, oh, you know, this is weaponized. The FBI search is an obvious act of intimidation, says former Obama White House ethics czar Norm Eisen. Oh, I wonder how they got that quote so quickly from Norm Eisen. Did Ben Wittes maybe rally the troops? The FBI search may be a lawful search, says Andrew Weissman, but it's still completely unwarranted. They certainly could have just used a subpoena. And of course, USA Today tells us that this is all coming from professional shithead Ben Wittes. Well, one of them, you know, a lot of reporters outside, one of them is Ben Wittes. So, I mean, you know, the uninitiated would see this and think, oh, wow, what an organic news report from USA Today. They happened to speak to one journalist on the street, happened to be Ben Wittes. No, that's not at all what's playing out right there. That is a rush to production on a control the narrative situation where, I gotta say, I've been critical of Trump lately, and when I don't agree with or like what he does, I'm not afraid to say that, but it does appear, and Kash Patel, I've been very critical of him, I've been very critical of Pam Bondi, but this finally appears to be action in the right direction. So even the allies of John Bolton agree that he might have criminal liability here. He might be in some serious trouble for publishing this classified information. Now, the part that interests me is how concerned Ben Wittes, Norm Eisen, and Andrew Weissman are. Were they somehow involved in advising or helping John Bolton to publish that information? Were they somehow involved in making sure that the Biden administration dropped the prosecution? Because if they find out that that was done improperly, you know, I don't know. I don't know the details. I'm just speculating now, of course, but seems like there could be some criminal liability there for some criminals that I really dislike. So, you know, Ben Wittes sounding nervous right outside there. How did Ben Wittes know that the FBI, he said he hadn't communicated with the Bureau, and I believe that. I have a feeling maybe he communicated unofficially with somebody who works for the FBI, and that would potentially support a truthful statement that he hadn't communicated with the Bureau. Communicating with the Bureau, to me, implies, or at least I could imagine, a jackass like Ben Wittes going into court and trying to defend himself against a perjury charge, which are easier to defend, it seems, than you might imagine. Judges let these people get away with a lot of stuff. I think Ben Wittes could say something like that, and even if you tried to get him on perjury, he could go into court and say, well, he spoke to an FBI agent or a retired FBI agent or a fired FBI agent who spoke to another agent. He didn't actually speak to anyone directly speaking on behalf of the Bureau, so that technically might have been true. But obviously somebody told Ben Wittes something was going on. He was right outside the moment this happened. He was literally the first person there at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. How did that happen, Ben Wittes? It's weird. Now, I can't really talk to Ben Wittes because I'm in litigation with him. That's right. Back in court with Chris Boozy and his stupid friends.
Whoopsie doodle, looks like we're back in court with Jason. Who could have seen that coming?
Yeah, that's right. Ben Wittes is one of the defendants in Goodman v. Boozy. Well, why is that? Because when I was trying to talk to Ben Wittes all about this nonsense that Shane Harris was putting into the Washington Post. Was it the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal? It was the Wall Street Journal initially. He didn't want to talk about it until December 2020, when he knew that he was in the clear because Joe Biden was taking over. Seems remarkably similar to what Mr. Bolton might have done as far as publishing this illegal classified information. And by the way, that's what they tried to jam up Trump on. You've got Andrew Weissman or Norm or whoever it was there saying, oh, this is outrageous. Why do they need to send a raid to get documents from John Bolton? They could have just sent him a subpoena. Well, why did they need to send a raid? John Bolton's not a former president of the United States. He's a mustachioed shithead. And if they think he's got classified documents and you tell him, hey, could you hand those over? He's likely to destroy them, I would presume. I don't think he's going to give them to you. That would be my first guess. But I don't know. And anyway, look, they're acting like there was no Mar-a-Lago raid. It's absolutely outrageous in my view. I mean, it's just stupid is what it is. There's the World Trade Center over there. What do people think about all this? Have people been following this? Were people aware of these subtle details? Brad says Wittes might be Bolton's boyfriend and that's why he was at the house. I mean, I don't really have any evidence that would cause me to believe that. I think it's more likely that they're involved in, you know, sinister plans to share around information that shouldn't be shared around and to jam up Trump. That seems to be what they're doing. They're deep state bedfellows, not gay lovers. At least I don't have any evidence that they are. Certainly anything is possible. Wouldn't put it past. But I don't know, this all struck me as remarkable and in need of a live stream to sort of hash it all out, because this is their MO, right? They create these false narratives, they put them out in the news. This is an RX-8, right? I admire those rotary Mazdas. Or maybe it's an RX-7. Maybe the last model. I think they did make an RX-8, didn't they? But this is their MO, right? They put out false stories in the news. That's Shane Harris. They alert the FBI. Well, see, the system's been turned on them because now they've got the FBI at one of their own guys' houses, and they're like, wait a minute, what is the FBI doing here? They shouldn't be here. But the way they normally work is, you know, Ben Wittes contacts James Comey, and he says, oh, look at this story that the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post or whoever is working on. It comes from, you know, certain intelligence from a private British intelligence firm. And so now everybody is hooked on that and thinking that they're talking about the Steele dossier. I disagree. They're talking about the Tate dossier, Matt Tate and his private British intelligence firm, Capital Alpha Security. They're talking about the demonstrative pedagogical summary to be developed and released on November 8th, dated September 7th. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about planting elaborate schemes. Double standard stupidity, yes, but it's not just a double standard. I mean, to me, calling it a double standard presumes some degree of innocence on their side. They think people are stupid. You know, they set up things, and I see this in my court cases, you know. This is like Caproni not allowing me to see this email that George's brother quite obviously sent to the Television Academy. I know that email was sent by George's brother, or someone that George's brother told to send it. There's just no way. It's a coincidence. There's no way. I mean, for 8 years, George's moron brother has been monitoring everything I do and trying to come up with a way to turn anything and everything into some sort of legally actionable claim. And, you know, I think it's becoming one of the sort of tenets of lawfare that everything they do, it can come back, and it's like a boomerang. It comes back on them, right? Because I guess George's brother said, oh, wow, look at that. Jason made this thumbnail image with the Emmys statuette in it, and he had to know that Adam Sharp was involved in lawfare at a high level, because there's no way that Adam Sharp was on the original plan to deal with me. You know, they had Robert David Steele and Stephen Biss and low-level losers like that. They didn't plan on, you know, getting me all involved with their second-generation CIA people like Adam Sharp. He's a high-level fancy pants, you know, supposed to be respectable CEO of the Emmys, personal friends with Barack Obama. I mean, think about that. If I'm correct in everything that I've been talking about, he helped Barack Obama win the presidency in 2008 with Twitter. He helped the FBI infiltrate Twitter. He helped cover up the Hunter Biden laptop story. I mean, he's like an incredibly high-level political operative. They certainly did not plan on sending Adam Sharp to tangle with little old me. But when the opportunity presented itself and they said, hey, you know what, you could spend $2 million suing this guy to take his YouTube channel down. How ridiculous is that? $2 million, at least. That's just the Television Academy that spent that. But obviously Adam Sharp was in a unique position to bring that legal action because he was the president of the Emmys. So the Television Academy brought the legal action against me. Look at this guy. Is that a real cat standing on the guy? It's a dog or something. This guy's just got his dog standing on his shoulders. That's pretty funny. It's not every day that you see that. Is it? But, you know, that was sort of a moment of opportunity for them, seized upon through the ingeniously stupid plan from George's brother, that now is going to come back and haunt them. It's going to be their downfall. Because, of course, Adam Sharp is also in Goodman v. Boozy. He's another one of the litigants in there. Yeah, blob of mercury or something. What are people talking about here in the comments? What is Wittes doing over there exactly? J.D. Wilcox, who shot Trump? I did not see that, I don't think. I know that there's a lot of people who are now, you know, getting back a little bit on the who shot Trump question. I mean, I'm primarily talking with Ken Silva about that. Ken has got a lot of good information. Actually, no, even though that's changing the subject, we can diverge to that a little bit because, look, I think it's all the same people. This is essentially, they're all connected. Everybody who wants to do away with Trump as the president, either through lawfare or just that assassination attempt or whatever, they're all connected in some way, it would seem. And yeah, I mean, the investigations, there was an article in Gateway Pundit yesterday talking about basically Ken, and it didn't exactly mention Ken. It was sort of weird. It was talking about Abel somebody, but it was saying like, hey, why didn't the coroner give this histography or whatever it's called? Now I'm looking for something here. And they were talking about how strange it was. Yeah, see, this is difficult to find. But it's timely because I've only got a few days left before I am to present the findings of fact and conclusions of law to Judge Daniel Regan. This is Goodman versus the Allegheny County Medical Examiner. And basically, in putting that together, it's helping me organize my thoughts in a way that I hadn't before. And here's basically what it comes down to. We can tell from public reporting that before the coroner ever got the body and used any DNA to identify it as Thomas Crooks, the ATF and the FBI had identified it as Thomas Crooks based on the gun. And we know that from the timeline and the public reporting. Why is this crooked now? We know that from the timeline and the public reporting from the Washington Post and CNN and things like that, and also from reports from the FBI and press conferences and stuff like that, because they're saying that they went to press conferences and stuff like that because they're saying that they went to Matthew Crook's house and basically like, hey, you know, we got your gun from the roof, so this must have been your son shooting the gun. And that's how they determined that it was Thomas Crook's. That's not really a forensic investigation because it sort of does away with the possibility that somebody could have stolen that gun. I mean, why wouldn't they maybe presume it's Thomas Crook's, but you got to do some DNA testing? I mean, why wouldn't they maybe presume it's Thomas Crook's, but you got to do some DNA testing? And now what's coming out in all these different investigations is that it seems that nobody has done any DNA testing on this body prematurely. Remember, we had maybe Clay Higgins. He was pissed off. So, you know, he's a cop, so he definitely has some, you know, experience with this, you know, investigating murders and stuff like that. And so the notion that they burned up out of it's a fancy. Wow. Down here a little bit of a different part of town. This woman's with her dog at the sitting at the table. That's good. But the point is, it seems like nobody ever used any DNA, and then they burned up the body, probably the body of Maxwell Urich. I mean, I don't understand why the alleged sister was so pissed off that I was saying it was Maxwell Urich, and they didn't just produce a video saying, hey, Jason Goodman, it's Max Urich here to tell you you're stupid. I wasn't there on July 13th. That's all that guy would have to do to permanently put to rest. He wouldn't have to reveal his location, wouldn't have to reveal anything. Just mention my name, because I never heard of him before it happened. Mention Butler, Pennsylvania, July 13th. And that would put that to rest. But instead, the alleged sister, or someone pretending to be the sister, is just on and on and on about how he wasn't there. So that's what I mean. This is fake stories planted in the news, Ben Wittes. And by the way, what does Adam Sharp claim to be? Sharp Things, his political consulting company, it's at the nexus of media, technology, and politics. When he leaves Twitter, he tells everybody, ooh, you know, after, what does he say? After 12 years, or no, 5 years and 12 elections, something like that. I think I've got it in here somewhere, don't I? Adam Sharp, where are you? He says he's so sad, there it is. He's so sad to be leaving Twitter after all these years and manipulating all these elections. And he's telling us about this. It's published on the 28th, same exact day that Ben Wittes sends his fateful email to James Comey, Rybecky, Baker. And look, he's talking about elections. And it happens the day after Obama decides he doesn't like the intelligence assessment. This is December 9th. Just the other day, we heard Ed Martin tell Maria Bartiromo that December 8th was the birthday of Russiagate. Interesting. So it seems like one of the highest level political operatives who's personal friends with Barack Obama, who maybe, you know, when you need to get something done, you go to Adam Sharp. When you need to win the election, Adam Sharp. When you need to rig up Twitter with the FBI, Adam Sharp. When you need to get Jason Goodman off the internet and sue him, Adam Sharp. Maybe he's not so sharp. We're going to find out. George's brother is definitely not so sharp. Ben Wittes is not so sharp. Ben Wittes seemed nervous as hell to me. I don't know. All of this could be wrong, by the way. These are my opinions. This is speculation, a hypothesis I'm forming by looking at this public domain evidence. None of this has been proven in court, or at least the overwhelming majority of it hasn't. You might look at the same exact evidence and come to totally different conclusions. That's for you to decide. It's interesting though, isn't it? How did Ben Wittes know to go over there? I find it super strange. What do people say in the comments? Yeah, I was talking to Sal yesterday about the Winnie Greco is the person's name, not Renee. But Winnie Greco was giving people money in the potato chips bag. Oh, this is a famous breakfast place, Bubby's. Ah, here we are, North Moore Street. Now, let's see, who do we know on North Moore Street? It's busy right now. Is it North Moore Street on this side? It's a very small street. That's why it's difficult to find. Bubby's customers. That's actually conveniently located, isn't it? $42. There we go. Yeah. Leave the address out. Maybe he's not home. Might not be home. Well, okay. That's somebody who doesn't want to talk to me anyway. Premium Real Estate, once owned by a criminal associate of Jeffrey Epstein. People who have been following closely will know who I'm talking about. He's going to have to do some talking soon. He was quoted in that USA Today article, one of the four horsemen of the Lawfare apocalypse. Not home. I wonder if he likes eating at Bubby's. Little bagel with a schmear over there. I could believe it. Criminals. These people are criminals. It's really bad. I think I'm gonna have to reopen that file because, you know, our buddy Bill Pulte has been really aggressively pursuing mortgage fraud. He's doing great work. Rebert says, can't imagine Bolton being out of the loop on Ukraine business. Maybe he got some communications that were classified. Well, I mean, I guess we could figure out what it was that he had that was classified because there was something of a big deal made out of it when he published it during the Trump, you know, the first Trump administration. I mean, again, Ben Wittes was quite clear in the sequence of events. He said that John Bolton wrote this book and it's got to go through this process where whoever, Department of Defense or CIA or whoever, looks at what you're publishing and says, no, you can't publish this, it contains classified stuff. And if you get clearance to publish it, then you can publish it. So apparently he did that. It didn't get clearance. Then it was going through some second clearance process, and before that was finished, he published it anyway, and then he got charged. Or they were gonna charge him or something, and then that was dropped when Biden came in. So that's what I'm saying. It was like, 2020, December-ish, this whole crew was emboldened to do all kinds of things that they weren't wanting to do while Trump was president, because they are the Get Trump crew. Whether it's through lawfare or straight up trying to shoot him, this is all they do. We got this guy Ryan Routh, has all kinds of weird connections to Ukraine and intelligence people. We got somebody over here living in a fancy $7 million apartment. Doesn't want to answer the doorbell, doesn't have his name on the doorbell. That's all right. I got the address from the mortgage documents. I think I already have the evidence that he's committed mortgage fraud. Actually, wait a minute. I got to write some letters to Bill Pulte. Yeah, because he keeps saying, hey, if anybody knows who's doing mortgage fraud, let us know. I'll let him know. He's there on Twitter, Bill Pulte. That's what I mean. Twitter was a lot of fun. X. I mean, look, it's still probably a social engineering and surveillance tool, but in concept, it's fun. Isn't it so terrible? I mean, they've taken... Look, I think most people who watch this show are my age and older generally. So you know what I'm talking about, and it sounds like old man crap to say this if you're younger than me, but like life in the 90s and stuff, it really... And look, people who are way older than me are gonna say, everything was already crappy by the 90s. But I'm saying now that everything is, surveillance and tracking everything you do and, suppressing speech and all that, it's like we're never going back. I hope we will, but I don't know. Seems... it's not ideal. Let's see, more comments, what anybody might have to say. Couldn't get his clearance cleared, Clarence. Exactly. Yeah, and don't call me Shirley. But that was the issue there. And, then they try to jam up Trump for exactly what they're doing. That's what these guys do. That's what they're doing to me. They come in to court and say that I'm stalking and harassing Nina. Meanwhile, that's George's brother doing that to me. So, I mean, if people haven't seen the counter lawfare report from the other day, I really encourage you to check that out. It was really great. I mean, I've discovered some awesome stuff. Get onto subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth and check out that counter lawfare report, because what's happening is Goodman v. Boozy is back in business. It's back in play. It's really unbelievable. I would like some input from lawyers, not in terms of advice, but just, have you ever heard of a 60B4 motion seeking relief from judgment, reopening 20 plus filings in a case going back 2.5 years? The judge has asked the magistrate to issue a new report and recommendation on filings going back to December 2022, including one where I am seeking to have George's brother undergo a court-ordered psychological or psychiatric, I don't know what the difference is, but a mental evaluation on the basis that he's a fucking nut. And I think, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, but I think the fact that the judge has basically said, yeah, we want the magistrate to go over that again, I mean, it would seem to indicate to me that she's at least considering the possibility that he might be a goddamn nut. Now, I looked into it a little bit. This is like Rule 35A or something like that. And it said that basically in civil cases, But it's the federal rules of civil procedure. That's the thing. Sometimes you ask AI stuff and it doesn't know what it's talking about. But this is a rule from the federal rules of civil procedure that allows the court to order a person to undergo a psychological evaluation. And so if it's in the federal rules of civil procedure, it has to be something that can happen in a civil case. And look, again, I think the likelihood that the whole thing gets found in my favor, it's pretty low. But right now, the way they've got it is, I'm not allowed to sue Ben Wittes. I'm not allowed to sue Nina. The state action that Nina had going in Virginia was supposed to prevent me from even mentioning her by name. I got that overturned. That was a huge counter lawfare victory. There's still more to come in that case. There's an appeal happening, and also I'm trying to dissolve the original thing on the basis that it was never, it's unconstitutional. Void ab initio. But that remains to be seen. So in Goodman v. Boozy, which includes Ben Wittes and Adam Sharp and George and his brother and the Television Academy, maybe some other people, some lawyers. Oh yeah, lawyers. People definitely want to get onto that counter lawfare report. It's amazing. See, I mean, basically Ben Wittes showing up at John Bolton's house there, it's like pieces of a puzzle are falling into place. I mean, there's a lot of people, including my own brother, who think, this is just a crazy guy who thinks you're an idiot, doesn't like your YouTube show, you're making cartoons about him, you're fighting with him on the internet, so he's just trying to upset you. And I'm like, really? Oh, come on. For 8 years, somebody's gonna carry on with that? It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, you think about all the other people who have come and gone. Manuel Chavez got over it pretty quickly, and frankly, I don't even really hold any hard feelings against that guy. So long as he never bothers me again, I have no interest in him. Quinn Michaels, who else has there been? Some idiot from George, I forget his name, who was telling me about Freemasons and then within a day made it obvious that he was an idiot. Even Oki Marshall Richards. There's a lot of people who have come and gone. Trish Negron, I don't care about these people anymore. So long as they go away and leave me alone. And each of them were arguably crazy. Why didn't they stay on it for 8 years? See, what does make sense is if I'm talking about things that could implicate them in crimes that would put them in jail, that would make you want to stay on me and shut me up for 8 years. That might make you want to pay George's brother to do that. These types of things make sense to me. Just somebody's a nut and they're angry at you for 8 years. 8 years is a long time. Even nuts get into other nutty business. That guy's a nut in a different kind of way. So here we got a lot of late day traffic. Everybody's trying to get back to New Jersey, wherever they're going, driving around like mad people. But definitely check out that counter lawfare report. If you're on X, following on x.com at JG_CSTT, you can subscribe on there and click on the subs tab and you get all the subscriber exclusive videos. Oh, now wait a minute, are we near? I think we might be near Hunter Biden's art gallery. I could be wrong. A lot of these Soho streets look the same. I don't know, what do people think about this? Pretty crazy stuff, right? I mean, I want to know how Ben Wittes knew that the FBI was going to raid John Bolton. I don't know if Adam Sharp is related to Gene Sharp. Cognizant Dissonant is asking me, where is RDS? I don't know where he is, but I suspect he's not dead. I don't know if I've gone into all these details too heavily, but his nonprofit seemed like a money laundering operation to me. The same year that he claimed to die, something like 2.6 or 2.9 million went into his nonprofit, and that's like 10, 12 times the amount of money that thing has ever gotten in any other year. And then it went down to like $40 the following year. So where the hell did all that money go? And by the way, I got phone calls from people who said that RDS owed them money. Some guy who operated a bus, you know, like a tour bus company, that luxury tour bus that he was using for his stupid Unrig the World tour, or whatever it was called. He owed that dude a ton of money. So he went around raising money, and then here we got Fast and Furious, Tokyo Drift, Breaking Knees edition. RDS basically went around raising money and then claimed to be dead. And so, I mean, again, anybody who wants to sue him if his wife says he's dead, lawsuit's over. Maybe that's his retirement fund from the CIA. I don't know. Are we on the street? Where are Hunter Biden's? Maybe not. Might be the next street over. Hunter Biden's another one. What's going on with the Hunter Biden lawsuit with Melania Trump? Somebody says Hunter Biden glued a bunch of used crack pipes to a canvas and called it art. I guess that's possible. I don't want my shoes to get all wet walking in these guys' bleach.
Gotta bring it over there. So we clean the whole thing with soap and then we throw the water. Oh, maybe we use that for the planter?
Yeah, that's bleach. Whew, that stinks. Bleaching the sidewalk. Why are you doing that? It's a beautiful day, I have to say. Now, wait a minute. I think it is the Hunter Biden Art Street. I was just one block south of it. People remember how pissed off that guy said when I said you're laundering money, you're the only guy doing it, and he said, oh, really? It was almost like he was mad that I said you're the only, oh, really? It was almost like he was mad that I said you're the only guy doing money. I think he knows everybody's doing it. That guy should really be investigated. I mean, the thing is, all these criminals realize there's just simply not enough resources to prosecute even 10% of the criminals, it seems. I don't know what the percentage is. DTR, now was this it right here? No, this is it. Here we go. Nobody in there. So we'll see what happens with John Bolton, and we'll see what happens with Ben Wittes. Look, my personal feeling is Ben Wittes is nervous because he's implicated in this, and the noose is tightening, as they say. That it's getting closer and closer to him getting into trouble. It's a cute little dog. Getting closer and closer to Ben Wittes getting into trouble. That's why he was over there at John Bolton's house, and somebody close to it knows that Ben Wittes is in trouble and said, you better get over here because this story is going to get spun in a way that you're unlikely to be fond of, and get your people on it or something like that, right? So then George Conway goes over there, and they can start already with the, you know, before the word gets out too much, where the first thing everybody hears in the news is, oh, John Bolton got raided because he's stealing classified information or whatever it is they were going to say. They want to get in front of that story with their own narrative that this is heavy-handed and that it's Trump weaponizing the DOJ. That's what they're trying to do. That's what they do, is they put their spin on everything. Look, in addition to the fake narratives that they put out there to then get the FBI to investigate, they just want to massage every narrative and control the story. Give Emmys to fat little idiots like Donnie O'Sullivan, destroy YouTube channels for people like me who are allowing everybody to listen to ideas and opinions and facts that they choose to listen to. They just want to force feed everybody false nonsense, govern information, decide what they think is disinformation. That's what it's all about. That's why they're hooked up with Nina. And then you got, you know, Chris Boozy and George's brother. They're enforcers. They are there to smash what I'm doing. And they live their lives like hobos. George's brother and George particularly are set up to be essentially litigation mercenaries. They live like hobos. They don't have homes or any kind of large amount of valuable, you know, nothing you can sue them for, you know? And that way people like Ben Wittes, who do own homes and have jobs that pay them lots of money and want to conduct their lives like fairly regular people, they're insulated from these lawsuits. That's why they hate it that I'm suing them and want to make it impossible for me to sue them, because evidence will come out in these cases that can then be sent to other people. And once it's in court and it's been authenticated as evidence, they hate that. Like if this court rules that this email from Ben Wittes to James Comey, which also went to Rybecky and Baker, which, who was it that was talking about that? Maybe it was Kash Patel? No, John Solomon. He said some newly declassified thing, was talking about how, you know, Rybecky told Baker to do this and that. Now, the other thing that's come up recently is this guy, Eric Lichtblau. Lichtblau, he's a New York Times reporter. He's kind of gone off the radar lately. I was looking at his website and his Twitter, not too much activity. His X account, not too much activity on there lately. But he's a New York Times journalist who was publishing all that stuff about Alpha Bank. Remember that back in 2016, Alpha Bank? That looks like good spaghetti. Alpha Bank, a little bolognese sauce on there. Alpha Bank was this Russian bank that they were, this is what the US versus Sussman criminal prosecution was all about. Remember? Michael Sussman, the attorney for Hillary Clinton's campaign, had allegedly lied to the FBI by going in there and saying, oh, I'm just trying to help out the FBI, not representing any client. Again, we've got a lawyer planting a tip, very much like Ben Wittes contacting James Comey saying, oh, I don't know if this is true or false, but maybe you should investigate it. Then he gets a journalist to write about it. And then the FBI can say, oh, well, we're investigating. Here it is in the news. Bring it into court, get a warrant. Suddenly you're kicking in somebody's door. And, you know, reputation is ruined, campaign is ruined. They lose whatever it is they're running for or don't get confirmed. You know, this is a method they can apply to anyway. This is how you knock somebody out. So Sussman goes in there and he says, oh, you know, this or that about Alpha Bank. We don't really know because it's under seal. In United States versus Sussman, this guy, Eric Lichtblau, he's not a defendant, but he's a witness. Or, you know, he's a peripheral, you know, he's in there. I think he's a witness. He's testifying about stuff, and they're trying to get his source for, you know, how did you know about this from Alpha Bank? Well, maybe that source is Ben Wittes, because they protected the source. Maxwell Mishkin, the lawyer from Ballard Spahr, who magically came to rescue Chris Boozy when he was going to go into default. I went into all of this yesterday in the counter lawfare report. Seriously, if you're interested in this, and I recognize not everybody is, it's complicated. But if you're interested, please sponsor the show. Get onto, subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Or you can also sponsor on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. Or if you're following on X, subscribe on there. But you can hear all about this. Maxwell Mishkin came and represented. See, only assholes ride bicycles in the park. Maxwell Mishkin came and represented Chris Boozy. Maxwell Mishkin came and represented Chris Boozy after George's brother sent a frantic tweet to Ben Wittes and Nina Jankowicz. Why? Why did he do that? How did George's brother know? Of all the people to notify, how did he know to notify them? And why did Maxwell Mishkin show up the very next day? It seems like a coincidence, doesn't it? Maxwell Mishkin, could he have been protecting Ben Wittes in U.S. versus Sussman? Is Ben Wittes the source? Revealed, did Ben Wittes? Yeah, you're a fucking ass. Huh? Why don't you? State? Somebody could like that? The cops should be in that park. Where is the 6th precinct? Police badge and a gun telling them me. Please call the New York Times. Sending that guy with the NYC Ben Wittes. Oh man, we might have just lost the broadcast there. Did Ben Wittes Michigan is there cleaning up. Blue light equals lick blow. I don't understand what you mean. Lick blow. I see. Eric Lichtblau is a New York Times journalist, and also with Annie Jacobson, he wrote that book, Operation. Now, I don't know, maybe Operation Hangout, I would think it is, because single with the jackass when the break was, people might wonder. Now that's weird. Why did that happen? Was that guy on the bicycle having something in his back? Knock this broadcast out? I don't know, but let's keep talking about this, because I think sense. By Ben Wittes. And Ben Wittes was in Joe Biden's experts group. Maybe, certainly much here. Maxwell Mishkin comes sued in Goodman v. Boozy, helps Ben Wittes. Boozy's got really very little to lose. He was bankrupt already. What was he going to lose? Ben Wittes has everything to lose. So is Maxwell and rescues Ben Wittes? Seems probable. And we know that Ben Wittes is busily planting bullshit. Maybe Ben Wittes, just like he's emailing James Comey, maybe he emailed Eric Lichtblau and said, hey, you should investigate this Alpha Bank. I contacted Alpha Bank when that story first came out, and they sent me a very professional and detailed letter saying that they had nothing to do with Donald Trump and that they didn't know what was going on with their server and this and that. And it's almost like Boozy is Ben Wittes' IT guy or something. So that also makes sense in terms of connecting Lichtblau or Mishkin, the lawyer, to Boozy. Yeah, see, these walks are sometimes good for just airing out my thoughts. And you know what I'll do is I'll repost for sponsors this uninterrupted video. It's only a short segment that we lost there with the idiot on the bicycle. Wow, what did she think about the assassination attempt? It's only a short segment that we lost with the idiot on the bicycle. But whatever, I'll repost it so that people can watch an uninterrupted me yelling at that guy. I don't know, it just doesn't seem like they would be sending people on bicycles after me. But then again, I walk through there all the time and don't have any kind of signal disruption. And if they've been watching for an hour, we've seen them send people at me before. That guy who came down from an office building and walked up behind me and Charles and said, "How is George?" Think about how could you coordinate that? The timing was astounding. And the fact that that guy just came over and made a face and didn't yell at me or try to punch me or anything like that, maybe his purpose was to throw off the broadcast because maybe I'm getting too close. I mean, if these people do work for the CIA, Adam Sharp, Ben Wittes, I don't know, who knows what kind of resources they have. John Bolton. Right, didn't he have some hand grenade from USAID? I mean, these are high-level people who are maybe going to go to jail. It's pretty interesting. I don't understand. Couldn't they just run me over with a car pretty easily? That's the thing. That's why. I don't think they're... If they wanted to, that could happen pretty easily, I think. Maybe they like it better if I get taken out by fighting with somebody on a bicycle. Well, it definitely seems like it didn't break the stream, at least on YouTube, so that's good. Yeah, I mean, Ben Wittes is going to know that if they are really going after the Russiagate people, maybe John Bolton is the way in. I don't know what it is that he published in that book that is alleged to be classified information. I don't know, if anybody read the book, hit me in the comments and tell me what it is. I guess I'll look it up when I get home. But it's Friday, one of the last weekends of summer. We've got Goodman v. Boozy back in action, so it's going to be, yeah, here, this is the tweet that George's brother sent to Ben Wittes and Chris Boozy. This is another thing that the judge has put on the docket for the magistrate to re-examine, is the whole default of Boozy. So, I mean, I say again, I'm not an attorney. I don't know what that means. But it seems to indicate if she thought my motion were frivolous or stupid, she could have just said, no, Rule 60A1, we're going to correct the caption, and this 60B thing is outright denied. But she didn't say that. She said, okay, magistrate, open up these 20 some odd things and let's get a report and recommendation on everything. It's almost like an appeal. I think the best out possible. Oh, source changed. Why did that change? Okay, it's back. Seems like the best outcome I possibly could have gotten. And by the way, George's moron brother has been completely silent for the past like 3 days. So he's probably burning the midnight oil, trying to come up with, more nonsense to try to fight this. But I'm telling you, I think this might be the most effective legal motion I've ever written. Oh yeah, right. So did I finish this idea about the Allegheny County medical examiner? I guess I did. The issue there is, it just seems like nobody has done any DNA testing of that body. It's almost like we've got them caught. But I just wonder if this state level judge, decent guy as he is, Daniel Regan, I just wonder if he has the power to actually get the medical examiner to do this. I mean, even if he says do it and they refuse to, then what? Do the cops go there? The cops are in on it. I don't know. We're gonna find out. I mean, this is what I call going up to the edge of the video game. People who have ever played, maybe older, I don't know if they still do this, I haven't played video games in a while, but like back in the day, you'd get to the edge of the world and your character keeps running and the world doesn't continue any further. You just hit the edge. Can't go beyond this point. Here we are on 5th Avenue on a Friday, late summer, New York City, 2025. Maybe someday this will be more meaningful than it is right now. Although, I don't know, very often people tell me they enjoy seeing this. And sometimes even when I think maybe I'm not saying enough or I don't know, maybe I've run out of things to say. I feel like people might be bored, but they say, that was a great stream. Maybe it's the weather. I don't know, maybe I've run out of things to say. I feel like people might be bored, but stream. It's just the sound. Get to see people, all the closed retail. It's still a disaster, by the way. And you know what? It is an interesting kind of review of New York over time to look at the different streams if you've been watching for a while. This girl's on the phone, or I would ask her what she thinks of the assassination attempt. If you're watching over time, I think maybe it's interesting to see New York progress from, I guess I really wasn't doing too much of this before the pandemic. I mean, I did a few. I had put this system together initially to go to the Seth Rich, and by this system, I mean the concept of a mobile live stream. The first time I really did it, I tested it a little bit with Quinn Michaels, maybe in Philadelphia. Remember, I walked into the Freemasons Lodge in Philly. I don't remember if that was before or after. I think I was testing it with Quinn because, he was sort of into tech and I thought we were friends and I needed to test it a bit. So calling somebody on the other end who was gonna not get annoyed with technical failures was an initial kind of requirement. But the first time I think I really used it was at that Seth Rich press conference where, remember, that person who was associated with George, I forget her name now, Jenny Moore. Yeah, Jenny Moore. So she came in there. See, and remember, this was more of this kind of treachery and deception because everyone's like, oh no, I liked her. She was trying to help kids. Okay, that's what she said. I don't know if she did or didn't, but she came into that thing and knew that I was doing a live stream, sat down right next to me, made a point of even, talking and getting on camera, and then George's brother was like, oh, Jason revealed her on camera and then she was killed. I don't know if she was killed. I haven't looked at any of that. It was like Marcus Conte. I mean, that's what I mean. There's another idiot who I never think about, but he got the autopsy report and they were all arguing and fighting about it and keeping people all wrapped up in that drama. I guess because they figured if we're wrapped up in drama that has nothing to do with them, they're good. And by them, I mean Ben Wittes, Norm Eisen, Andrew Weissman. Because it just made no sense that she came into that thing and sat down right next to me and spoke. Because I never saw her. She could have sat down right next to me, and if she didn't say a word, I wouldn't have known who she was. It was when she spoke that I knew who she was. And I mean, they obviously could have anticipated that she was going to get on camera. And I don't know, is Robert David Steele dead? Is she dead? Is this the way they launder people out of these? What happens when somebody's in the witness protection program and their cover gets blown? Do they just say, oh, well, the mafia or whoever is going to go kill you? Or do they stage that person's death and relocate them somewhere else? I mean, either we agree or disagree that a witness relocation program, witness protection, whatever it's called, either that exists or it doesn't. So if it does, there's got to be a lot of complicated eventualities that arise, and there's got to be methods for how to solve problems. So if they wanted to take her out of a narrative, if they want to take Robert David Steele out of a narrative, how do they do that? Certainly faking the death and moving the person maybe to another country, give them another legal identity, change their appearance, stay off the internet and live on some island somewhere in another country. Who would even remember what that person looks like if they saw her, particularly if she changed her hair and aged 8 years or whatever it is? But anyway, the idea is, I started this concept of the mobile live stream to go to that Seth Rich conference and have Corsi on Skype. So he was at the conference with me doing a mobile live stream. And then I went and met through live stream. He was in Russia, obviously. Second mobile live stream was with John Mark Dugan. And I went to that park where Dugan said he met Seth Rich. Remember, George was all over all these stories. George was the one who said that Seth Rich met with Craig Murray in a park and gave him a thumbnail, a thumb drive. But it was actually John Mark Dugan who said that he received the thumb drive from Seth Rich. And this is all to do with Hillary Clinton's emails, WikiLeaks, Ben Wittes, Peter Smith, fake emails, Russian hacking, Russiagate. This is all, it's all connected. I don't know, that just seems like it can't be a coincidence to me. What do people think? Is the stream still going? Yeah. Her videos are still on YouTube. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, you leave the videos on YouTube. They would do that. They're trying to pretend she's dead. Or she is dead. I don't know. And then people will say, oh, but the police report and this and that. Like, look, any of these people, there's paperwork associated with it. Again, she said she was in the witness protection program, didn't she? That's why she didn't want to show her face, but yet George was always threatening to show her face. And then when she pops into my video and practically shows her own face, then George's brother tries to make a big deal out of it. I mean, I guess what they were going for with that was to get a lot of people to be big fans of her and then have sympathy for her because she's dead, and then make me look like some kind of bad guy for showing her face and somehow blame her death on me, because that also involved, right? Didn't that involve that woman, Corrine Stoughton? So she presented me with all kinds of nonsense about the Swigert brothers, including a voicemail of Dave crying about abandoning his son. And it always struck me as seeming fake, like he's such a bad actor and a stupid idiot, and bad at even doing lawfare. He's bad at everything. That's why his father loved punching him in the face, making him cry. So he was an idiot and a failure. And now everything that he's tried to do is going to blow up in Ben Wittes' face and Adam Sharp and all these lawfare criminals. This could be the start of the end for them, you know? Counter lawfare taking hold. Getting close to the end of the day here on Friday. This has been a long walk. I wanted to go down there. Yeah, I gotta do a little writing to Mr. Polte. He keeps saying, if you know anybody who's doing mortgage fraud, and just on this walk, I thought of two people who I know. Well, I don't know them. Two people who I know of, who I think qualify. And I think Mr. Polte, he's gonna like this because they're important. It's not just any old mortgage fraud. Someone, random person, maybe even anonymous on Twitter, was trying to make the case that like, oh, you know, how many cases of mortgage fraud get prosecuted? It's like, look, that's not the point. These are people in the government who shouldn't be doing it, and they're putting rules on everybody else. The real question should be, how many honest people are working hard and struggling to pay their mortgage and can barely do it, and then these criminals are getting paid 6 figures of our tax money and then cheating on their own stuff. It's ridiculous. Anyway, I hope that people will become sponsors. Definitely go watch that counter lawfare report from, maybe it was yesterday. Yeah, I think I just did it last night. They go into all kinds of details about this resurrection of Goodman v. Boozy. Maybe Chris Boozy doesn't even care. It doesn't matter. Throughout the time that that case has brewed and percolated, it's become clear that the real defendant there is Ben Wittes. Chris Boozy is a cutout for Wittes. He's a henchman. He's a tool, literally. Oh, this coffee place is out of business. Everything's out of business. I hope you're not out of business, and I hope you'll become a sponsor on subscribestar.com or patreon.com or on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or on X. Just subscribe on there. Think about how much the price of everything has gone up. The price of Crowdsource the Truth has not. All right, so we're going to get a little more radio interference over here, I think.